I'm McKinney Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real-life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Dr. Colleen Prendergast is a highly accomplished chiropractor, holistic nutritionist, and former D1 track and field athlete with a passion for sports injury rehabilitation and optimizing athletic performance through proper nutrition and lifestyle practices. Her diverse background and expertise have made her a respected figure in the field of sports medicine and holistic health. Dr. Prendergast's mission is to empower athletes of all ages and athletic levels with the knowledge and tools they need to take control of their health and performance. Her approach is centered around individualized care, taking into account each athlete's unique needs, goals, and challenges. Through personalized nutrition plans and lifestyle recommendations, she helps athletes make sustainable changes that support their physical and mental well-being. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Colleen Prendergast.
Hi.
Hi, Colleen. How are you?
Hi, thank you. I had a moment. I wasn't sure if you were going to continue or not.
All good, all good, all good. Thank you so much for saying yes and agreeing to come on and share your story and your expertise with us. I do not take your time or your energy lightly.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor, really.
Yeah. So, I love to have people on the show that I already follow, that I'm already connected with, because 99% of the time I'm already inspired by your story, your journey. And you and I were connected by a mutual friend, and I love what you do in the medical field. I love your perspective on things. And, the show is all about healing. And, even your Instagram handle is about healing as well. So I would love to jump straight in and talk about not only what you presently do, but, how you got there. So if you can give us the Coles Notes version of your story of how you got to where you are presently.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you again. That I'm touched that you are inspired by what I do, because I'm inspired by what you do. So that's why I say it's really an honor to be here. So Coles Notes version. I am a former athlete. I've always wanted to do that. And I really worked hard when I was a kid to convince my parents to let me run track. So I've always been fascinated by sports, athletics, well-being. I wanted to be a doctor since I was a kid. I didn't know what kind of doctor. And so that was always my focus. So I was always that kid that knew what I wanted to do when I graduated high school. And from there, I realized I could get a scholarship, use that ability to get me into the University of Iowa, which happened to be a very good program athletically and also had a great health science program. When you get a scholarship, you can go to a lot of schools, but I wanted to go to a school that had a good science program so that I could follow my dream of becoming a doctor. But I also, thanks to my dad, had a huge passion for traveling and languages. And he always inspired me to know about the world and different things, even though he didn't get to travel. And so when I got a chance, thanks to my school, to be able to go live in France, do an exchange program, I jumped on it. And I think from there, my eyes were opened and a lot of things changed in my life, just being exposed to something so different. And with the traumas and the good things that happened, I think all of it, I would do it all over again. And that brought me to where I am today. And because with the part of being an athlete, I discovered chiropractic. So it really guided me to what kind of doctor I wanted to be, being able to heal people and do it in a natural way. But through life's issues and traumas, I actually didn't want to do it anymore, didn't want to go to school anymore, and went back to France after I graduated. And then discovered they had a school there and realized I'd been talking about it and it's really what I wanted to do. And I ended up going to chiropractic school there and staying and living for almost 20 years.
Wow. Okay. So I always love to find the connection between what someone wanted to do when they were younger with, who they are today. And, like you said, being a former athlete and wanting to be a doctor and get into the space of healing. Well, obviously I see the connection obviously now because you are a doctor. So I love it. So what's your earliest childhood memory that defines who you are today?
Earliest, a good question. I think my earliest child, that's an interesting question. I think it was being in the hospital. I remember, and I don't know why this sticks with me, but I remember, and nobody judged me. As a kid, strangely enough, realized this wasn't a good thing after, I wanted to be sick because I was fascinated with being in the hospital and healing people and people getting healed. And so for me, in my child brain, the best way to get close to that was to be sick. Wow. I realized that wasn't a thing very quickly, but I specifically remember a period of time wanting to be sick just because I wanted to be around that environment. And I was 7 years old, I think it was, when I got my tonsils out. And I remember because I wasn't really sick, right? So it's a way of being sick, being in the hospital, but it's not that bad. I remember being in the hospital and walking around and seeing all these different people. And I was about to get my tonsils out and then putting a sticker on me saying, "Do not feed." It was the strangest thing because I couldn't eat before having the operation. They knew I would have found food. So I don't know. I guess that's probably my earliest memory and just seeing people suffer. And I remember walking around actually talking to people, making them laugh. Cause like I said, I was getting my tonsils out. It wasn't a serious illness. So I was able to walk around and talk to people, seeing other people that weren't doing well. And I'd make them laugh. I go from room to room. And yeah, I think that's probably my earliest.
So I find that interesting because, kids have very vivid imaginations and, they run wild, and it's not until we become adults where, our imagination is limited, or we're told, that our imagination isn't a good thing, which I believe the opposite, but it's always interesting to see the mindset of a child based on their goal or objective. Like, when you are explaining, to be in that environment and pretending to be sick, I find it's pretty common with people that I know and their kids, fake sick.
Yes.
My kids always confess of stories of when they were younger, of when they faked being sick and, what they got in return, or, what the outcome was.
Exactly.
But my middle daughter actually reminded me of a story of when she faked not being able to see because she wanted glasses. She thought glasses were cool. So she pretended she couldn't see, and we took her to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor took us aside and was like, her eyesight's perfect. Yeah. I think she just wants glasses for fashion. It's interesting, to learn the perspective there. But, you talked about
luckily
living in a foreign country.
For too long.
Yes. But you talked about living in a foreign country. And so I know, as someone who loves to travel, every environment that you go in, there's a learning curve. There's an adjustment to the culture, to people, to the language. I'd be interested to know how living in a foreign country for so long forced you out of your comfort zone, out of, your regular habits or things that you were used to, and showed you different perspectives.
Oh, the list is long. Let's start with the big one, food. Food
Mm-hmm.
was a huge thing, right? Because, and especially I lived in France, so there's such a food culture based group of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very thankful. So it's funny because I was talking about it, something that's very typical, foie gras. Foie gras is something that's so important to them, especially at Christmas time or any big events. And till this day, my mother-in-law will send a package at Christmas time so that the kids can have it, because you can probably get it here, but it's not the same thing and it costs an arm and a leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was something where I ended up loving it. But I remember when I first moved there, I hated it. I was like, what is this? Fat around the liver? Like it just seemed so ridiculous to me. And then just there's so many different things, but there are things that I loved, like crepes. I love those right away. But it's just the way they ate, the things they ate. And it was a lot of it was in France, but then being in Europe, you get to visit other countries. And the very particular thing about Paris, which is amazing, is that they have so many different cultures and they're all represented in the restaurants there. And the quality of food is good, great even, because they have to keep it to the standard of the French food in order for people to like it. Even the street food, like it's all just so flavorful and so good. So, and because they love to go to the cafe, eat, and a lot of social events happened around gathering and food, that was a big thing for me. So I'll give you a little story. When I first moved there, I had a boyfriend. That's also what helped me to move back there. He's also a very good friend today. Shout out to him, and his family is amazing. When you talk about stories of people who welcome you to a country, honestly, I can't ask for better. These are amazing people. So, they would have lots of family gatherings. Okay. So in my Caribbean background, you don't sniff food. Okay. The French love to smell food. I thought it was the most crazy thing, but it comes along with just one, making sure the food is fresh. So like if you're eating something fresh, like oysters, you got to smell it to make sure it's good. And it's actually a endearment to them, just like they smell the wine before they drink. So that was an adaptation, for example, for me to see how they interacted and adapted with food. And then also knowing that there are so many courses of food. That's why there might be smaller portions at each step, because there are so many steps. And the first family gathering I was so hungry because it was so late as well, because they eat after 7, 8 o'clock. You're invited at 8. Nobody's on time. And then by the time you start snacking, and then you're done at like 12, like midnight. So I was starving, and I ate too many of the snacks and entrees. So by the time I got to the food, I wanted to eat, but I couldn't eat. So I looked like a typical North American that doesn't like food and didn't want to eat, but it wasn't that. I just couldn't eat anymore. So I just had to learn to take it slow or eat beforehand, something small so I could hold. So it was just little things like that. Just took me along the road to adapt to not offending people, adapting to their culture, knowing what to eat, when to eat. But I love it. It's been great, and it's really opened up a lot of my old conceptions of things by learning to eat different things. And I find that I can travel almost anywhere now and try something at least. Whereas before I wouldn't have.
So we have listeners from all over the globe. We have listeners in the UK. We have listeners in Australia. We have listeners in Asia. We have, listeners all over the globe. And it always surprises me when we get, messages or reviews, or, I get a lot of DMs on Instagram from listeners all over the world who can relate deeply to a healing journey of a woman that we've had on the show. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for someone like yourself who's traveled to different places, lived in different places, and had to adjust to different cultures, especially Caribbean background, adjusting to, say, the French culture, in terms of your
Mm-hmm.
healing, how did that affect you? Because, like you said, different cultures have different practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did that affect you?
Well, I had to learn how to express myself in a different way, because
Mm-hmm.
I went from living in Canada, growing up here, just with your Caribbean parents, living in the US. Um, and even though I was in an environment of a scholarship, there were lonely times because
Mm-hmm.
you're alone. You have an advantage of having a team that was there for you, but you have times where you're alone, where I used to call my parents all the time. So I had to learn to how to count on myself, believe in myself, and to find people around me that I could trust. So I think I learned quickly how to decipher who was for me and who wasn't for me. And
Mm-hmm.
especially as I got older. And that was a huge healing process for me, because when going as a teenager to the US, it was just like, everybody's great. Hey, you let everybody in, let everybody into your circle. And then it was just like, no, you can't do that. You have to
Mm-hmm.
learn to siphon out who's there for you, who's not for you. And sometimes even that person that's not for you has to be in your life for some aspect or whatever. And you have to learn to work with that, just like at any job. You have to work with people, even
Mm-hmm.
the people you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to say I had to learn to be good with myself, really good with myself, and then also know who the good people are around you, and make sure you cherish those people and keep them around you. And like you said, having moved around, like two of my greatest friends don't even live in this country, and some don't live in the same continent, but they're always there for
Mm-hmm.
me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, in spite of everything, knowing that they're there for me, even if we're not in the same country or same continent, that also helps. That's helped me
Right.
also heal. And honestly, my faith has helped a lot too, because
Mm-hmm.
when you're alone in a foreign country, yeah, you got to figure things out. And so I know that that's helped me a lot, especially when I had my daughter and
Mm-hmm.
I was alone with her. If I didn't have my faith, I don't know where I'd be, honestly.
So, okay, let's talk about that, because fa- I feel like, okay, so as someone who, grew up in the church and spent
Mm-hmm.
majority of my adult life religiously going to church twice a week
Yeah.
and being in certain environments, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, opening up my mind to different things, but
Mm-hmm.
understanding how belief has played a huge, huge role in who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, I want to say, if they are not, I don't want to use the word spiritual, but let's just say people who are faith based,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yes, whatever that
see
might
things
be, whatever that.
differently, right? May have a different perspective and see things differently than people who are not. So
Mm-hmm.
let's speak to how faith has played a role in your life, in your healing journey, in you getting to where you are presently, because faith and fear are both beliefs in the unknown. We have the ability to
Yes.
choose.
Yes.
And it's hard for us, I feel like right now, especially in today's society with everything that is
Mm-hmm.
happening, and basically, us dealing with like global anxiety and, these fear-based things that are happening in the media, and the chaos happening all over the world. Let's talk about how
Yes.
faith has impacted you. And then we can talk about some things that you presently fear.
So if I start from the beginning, one of the first times, so say like you, I grew up in the church, would go to church with my parents, and then there came a point where I found a church that I felt was more adapted to youth, and I switched that church. But even then, it's still growing up in the church. But I think the moment where I really used that faith, I had like I guess you could call it a aha moment,
Mm-hmm.
was when I learned to forgive. I think my capacity to forgive doesn't always come right away, but my capacity to forgive that comes from faith is what has helped me to survive over these years. Because, when we talk about a healing journey, we've all had trauma. We've all been wronged. We've all been hurt. I don't think anyone can make it through this world without any of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I've noticed, whether it be in friends, family, my patients, the thing I think that keeps me going is my capacity to forgive. So one day I was as a kid, I think it was in my teens. And it's actually funny, I was talking about the story of my son just recently, because I always talk to my kids about just forgiving and letting go. There's no point in holding a grudge. Is that in high school, I had a boyfriend. We broke up, ended up finding out that he started dating in a period that was way too short with a girl that was supposed to be my friend. Right. And we all have stories, and I was talking to her about him, maybe getting advice or whatever. I was frustrated, and then find out that they're going out after. I was so upset. Like it was a weight on me. And I remember they tried to talk to me, and I wasn't trying to talk to them. And then they gave up trying to talk to me. Like, they could care less. They were going on about their business. And then one day I was sitting in church, and I don't remember what verse or what happened, but it was really an aha moment about letting go, right? It doesn't mean that what it was okay, but I'm releasing it because I'm sitting over here hurting myself, creating tension, illness in my body, and they're over there having the time of their life, right? So so I had that moment at church, and then I can't even tell you, it just hit me. That's the only thing I remember now. Maybe I was 16, 17, and it hit me. And then I went the next day or the following day to school, and I saw them, and I remember it's one of those things that stick with me. I remember saying hi, and they were so shocked because I just let it go. I had decided to release that. Really felt like a weight was lifted off me, right? And ever since that, I try to make a point of not carrying anything against anyone and really looking at people's intention. There are people who have bad intentions. I still try and let it go because I'm not going to carry that weight for them. But sometimes I've also realized in my healing journey is that we're all humans. We're doing our best in this crazy world, like you said, fear-based, chaos. And sometimes we do things and we hurt people. I'm sure I've hurt people, but not intentionally. I try to go through my life every day to not hurt someone, but a choice that I might make that is absolutely necessary for me will sometimes hurt somebody else, but I still have to make that choice for me. So, and someone else could do that as well. So, I really try and look at somebody's intention. What were they doing when they did that? So if they did that and maybe that was what was necessary for them, but it didn't work out for me, and just to look at more of intention. So that's how I try and go through and heal. And it's not easy. Okay. I'm going through something right now where I'm trying to my child's father. Like, it's just, we all have our things that we have to deal with. But like I said, I really try to go off of this whole idea of just letting go. And some people don't like the idea of forgiveness. It's like, I don't need you to forgive me and because that's more faith-based. Call it what you want. Call it what you want. But the idea is I'm not carrying around your frustrations and your anger. Okay. It is what it is. I try and move on. And sometimes it goes quicker than it does in other situations. Sometimes it's a little bit more praying, a little bit sighing on the ears, but I try best that is my goal, to get to that point for my own well-being. And I have to say that it has served me. And that's why I'm able to talk to people that logically I shouldn't talk to anymore, or I'm able to get past things because I refuse to carry it. And the older I get, the more research I do, and true research that you can find out there about carrying that type of stuff, and it creates illness in our body. So I want to go on healing, and doing better, then we need to let those things go. So, like I said, 1,000%. It's not perfect, but that is how I go on my healing journey, and how my faith-based has helped me throughout my life, in terms of how people do things, and then dealing with different cultures. Because then sometimes people do things, but it's not them. There's some things that are just like, hey, this is universal, just don't do this. But there are things that are truly cultural. Like this is the way you do it. They don't mean any harm, but culturally, this is what they do. So it's
Yes.
either I accept to deal with that and continue to be in contact with that person, or I choose to yeah, I just choose to not have them in my presence. One of the two.
Mm-hmm. I think
So
forgiveness is good for everyone. It's good for the person giving the forgiveness, and it's good for the person
mhm,
receiving it. And to speak to
mhm.
your point of, not everyone is a believer in forgiveness. And I know people that are not,
Yes,
where
yes,
they refuse to forgive. And, that's on them.
yes,
That's their own healing journey. That's their own path. But
yes.
like you said, holding on to that malice, that heaviness, it's giving them power. And I had a family member. So my therapist had to work with me on forgiving a immediate family member recently because I've been upset with them for their behavior for a very long time. And
Mm-hmm.
as a personal boundary, I've chosen not to allow them into my intimate space. They no longer have a front row seat into my life. But the more that
Mm-hmm.
I enforce that boundary, whenever they contact me, it irritates my soul. so,
Mm-hmm.
so my
Yeah, I
therapist is
know
like,
that one.
the fact that you're irritated means that they still have power over you. Like
Yes.
you have said that you've moved on, but energy wise, your vibration is saying, no, you have not. So I've been
Exactly.
working on not being irritated when I get a message, from that person, because in order for me to say that I actually forgive them, I have to let go of that weight. And I had learned, it was a few years ago when I was, getting really deep into my healing journey, learning like the different levels of forgiveness. And I was trying to explain this to my friend who refuses to forgive because so there's zero forgiveness where there's like no resolution and you're stuck in anger. And I feel like that's where
Mm-hmm.
that friend of mine is. Then there's
Mm-hmm.
like conditional forgiveness where it's like if they apologize, so it's like a
Yeah.
transactional forgiveness. You'll forgive them if they apologize.
Yeah.
Then there's transformational forgiveness where there's no expectation and no apologies needed, where I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I can think of, I guess, a long time friend that I recently did that transformational forgiveness. It's like, I don't need you to apologize. I don't have any expectation of anything different from you because I know who you are. This is who you are.
Right.
So I forgive
Right.
you, but I know where
Right.
to place you, in my life. Um,
Exactly. Exactly.
and then there's that unconditional forgiveness, which is like what parents have with their children. Your kids
I
do
was just
wrong.
thinking that. Yes, exactly.
Yes, but we forgive them because they're our kids and we love them unconditionally.
It's either that or I throw them off a balcony, So, and then we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
Yeah,
So,
it's like we've got to let it go.
yeah, absolutely. I like that though. I like those four. I never thought about it that way until you broke it down. And
hmm
that's exactly what it is. You're right. And I think I had some that are like that. I'm in one of those right there. I think it's the apology one. I think that was your second one, the conditional.
Yep.
I'm dealing with
Yep.
that right now. I feel like it's one of those things where I've done so much unconditional with this person that
Mm.
they went overboard this summer, and it was to me such a disrespect that now I've passed the line. Now there's no more unconditional. It's a conditional. If
Mm.
And I've given them chances to apologize and they haven't taken it, so now it's just like, I think I'm like you said. You see how you said you were you think you've let it go, but then every time they call you,
hmm
you're getting
hmm
irritated. But every time I hear something of this person around me, it's irritating me. And so I haven't really let it go. And then now I'm on a conditional thing, as if, well, if they
hmm
actually wake up and apologize, then maybe I'll forgive them. Whereas I want to
hmm
get to I know where you are. I put you in your place because I've done the
Right.
unconditional for so long. And then now you just completely disrespected me. So it's a constant work. It's constant work. Right. But
Absolutely.
the
It
fact,
is. No, go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, the fact that I actually I'm aware of it is still in itself to me a healing process. Cause I too,
Yeah.
like you, have one or two friends that are not letting go. And I'm worried about them because they're not getting any younger, and it's affecting their life. It's affecting their life with their intimate, close family, and it's now affecting their life with their friends around them, and it's causing tension because they're kind of not self-aware of what it's doing. And I don't know, and we know how they are. We love them anyway, and we talk about it with our other group of friends. But it's like, it's gotten to the point now where it's just like, they're done. They're like, nope, we're going to put you in place. And it's like, it's a shame. So I keep trying to pull them back. It's just like, come on, but just don't want to let go. And just meet halfway, because I'm able to accept, because it hasn't really affected me too much. I know how they are. But it's now starting to affect others, where they're going to push them away. And that's the last thing they need. They need the group. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's kind of clear.
No, I understand completely.
I totally agree with you. And you said you were thinking about what I said.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said. And there are, okay, so the example that you gave with that person that you were giving them the unconditional forgiveness, and they kept pushing the boundary, right? So there are particular personality types. I won't name the name, but people who listen to the show know probably exactly who I'm talking about. But there are personality types where, because they are constantly in the trauma responsive fight mode, they don't even have the awareness of their wrongdoing. Like, they are constantly the victim, and they're basically trying to hurt you before you hurt them. So because they are in that state where they are only ever thinking of themselves, they don't apologize. They don't have, the empathy. They don't have, I'm going to say, the character traits required to heal relationships. So they burn those bridges. It's almost impossible for them, based on, how their brain didn't fully, finish developing and the characteristic trait that they all have as a commonality. So it's almost like, the more chances you give them, the more they will disrespect. So 100%. Every time you let them back in, that just shows them how much more they can push the boundary. So there is that possibility. And then also, because energy is transferable, when you feel like you don't vibe with somebody, especially even if it's someone that you used to vibe with, or someone you've never met, like, if I used to wonder why I couldn't put my finger on it. I'm like, I don't know what it is about that person. They're just a no for me. No thanks. Learning to understand energy levels, learning to understand vibration, learning to understand spirit, all of these things. Once you understand that, you understand it's not even that you dislike them for no reason, or you can't stand them for no reason. It's because you are not aligned energetically, spiritually, whatever label you want to put on it. And that's okay, because not everybody is supposed to be around you. Not everyone, we feel like because we've known someone for a long time that they should be, in your life forever. That's not the case with every single person. When you understand, if you've evolved, or, you are no longer in alignment with that person, that off feeling that you're getting, that is your spirit telling you, okay, this person is not meant to be close to me. That attraction, that connection, it's not there anymore. You're actually like, your energy is repelling each other, and that's for your safety. It's okay.
It's so, I can't even tell you the feeling I'm feeling, but hearing you say that, because this is something, this is something I've come to accept, more and more recently, because, I'm really focusing on, like, so for example, I want to live till I'm 100. Like, anyone that knows me now, that's my perception. But it's to live to 100 and live to 100 well. Okay. And I'm studying it, and how and why people do that. And one of the big things is just knowing how to live well and at peace. And having certain people in your environment does not garner peace. Right. And journaling is something that I've always done since I was a kid, stopped for a while and then started again. And just recently, I don't always go back and read it, but I just happened to open up the page to something I wrote for somebody I met in last year, at the beginning of in May or whenever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember writing something about that person. I was like, maybe, no. And then to find out, 3 months later, or however months later, it's just 6 months later, and I come out to, I'm like, oh my goodness, I was spot on. Why do I not just listen to my right from the get go? Because we all usually know. Some of us are better than others, but like you just described, we know why. It's just the energy, like you said. And then that's also why some people, you just met them and you feel like you've known them your entire life.
Yeah.
Because there's energy, because there's something that pulls you guys together. And then other people, you realize you're just dragging them along because you've known them forever when you were younger. And you just feel like you need to keep them around because, or you owe them or whatever. No. Like, don't discard them, but they don't need to have, as you said, a front seat to your life and a front seat to everything that you're doing. But that energy thing is something I've really tried to teach my kids and my son. My daughter's good at it too. She just expresses it differently. But my son is very, very, very aware of that. And I'm realizing it. He's a little bit my mini me. Which also goes with a lot of headbutting and arguments as he's a teenager.
Yeah.
But I try to tell them, listen to yourself. Whatever it is you think that you're feeling and that you're like, no. Yes. Listen to yourself. And what you're feeling is probably true. And that's very important, as you mentioned, in this whole thing of healing. And if we would all do that more often, I think we would all feel much better. Because you know what I found too now, having a plethora of different ages in my patient pool and even within family, is that most of the people that are older that might be angry or they start to get a little, I don't know what the word is in English.
Miserable.
Yes. Plainly just a miserable. Yes.
Les Miserables.
Yes. In French, because I don't know why, it's my brain. I lived there so long that sometimes I can't even speak English anymore. In French, you'd say aigri. I don't like the translation just doesn't work. Straight translation. But anyways, it's because they didn't say or do what they wanted to say or do. So my biggest thing in the last, especially for 2024, is like, all by saying it with tact, of course, I'm not out to hurt anyone, but to just say what I want to say. If you don't like it, then that's not a me problem. I'm making sure that I say it properly, but I need to let it out. I'm not about the people who just say what they have to say, no matter who they're hurting, just because they have to let it out. I'm not about that either, but I find the right as much as possible and the right way, but I need to say it. And it's not about me being fussy. It's not about me being extra or whatever the word is that the other person who doesn't like what they're receiving wants to put on you. No, I'm just clarifying so that I don't walk around being angry for you for something when in reality I just misunderstood. Or no, I'm keeping down something that you, and I'm letting you do something to me that I shouldn't be. I don't have the energy, no time for that anymore. And it doesn't work well. Like our body holds everything. If there's one thing I can tell people who are listening, is that I see it. And over 15 years of practice, I've noticed is that, and women tend to do it a little bit more, but men do it as well, is that we carry everything. The pain you have in your shoulder, the pain you have in your gut, the pain, whatever, sometimes is because of whatever trauma you're dealing with, or that you are actually creating on yourself just because you won't release it or say to the people that around you that what needs to be said. So it's not even their fault because, like I said, they don't even know that what they're doing is wrong. If you don't tell them, how are they supposed to know? They're not mind readers, right? And absolutely. I remember when I was going through my separation and divorce, which is a very painful experience, my dad said it to me and it really resonated with me. It's like a death. It really is a death. It's a death of, it's like you've lost somebody because you lost the image of what you thought you were going to have. You lost the security you thought you had. It's a form of death.
Yeah, and, you're grieving.
And my body was grieving. I remember I had a shoulder pain that came and went once I started to get through and understand. But for a 2-week period, right when it happened, it was at a traumatic time. I had just moved. It's the last thing you want. You think you're moving and purchasing a home for your family, and the other person decides to walk away for whatever their reasons are. But like I'm past talking about why or how or whatever, but it happened. And you just see everything blow up in your face. You've just moved everything. And for a 2-week period, I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't move my arm. And for someone who works in a very manual way, that's a problem. Fortunately, for me, I had already planned to take those 2 weeks off because it was around Christmas as well. So I planned to help settle the kids. They're small, and I just couldn't move my arm.
That's trauma within your body. Your body was reacting. Like there's actual conditions where like, if someone experiences, a severe trauma, or like, someone close to them dies suddenly or unexpectedly, things like that, like they actually like temporarily get paralyzed, or they get paralyzed from the waist down, or, they have all these things happen. And I can speak from experience where my body has physically shut down. It happened to me 2 weeks ago, from stress. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And I recommend that everyone. Okay. Yeah. It breaks down and explains how, our emotions, our trapped emotions, how it affects us physically within our body, the different parts of our body where, like, I don't want to quote it wrong, but like the different parts of our body that, what emotion it is, based on where it's trapped. And the author of that book created basically like a training program where he trains like a bunch of practitioners to help release the trapped emotions. And I did one session years ago, probably 2018, 2019, and my mind was blown. And I don't speak about this experience often because I'm like, I don't know if anyone's going to believe me.
No, I believe it.
But it was a 1-hour session, and I didn't give them any personal information about my story or my history. But based on where my body, I was feeling the pain, they were able to tell me what emotion was trapped and when. So, for example, when I was 17 and I got pregnant with my first child and I was dealing with a lot of shame and, all these emotions, I had it trapped within my body and they were able to release it in that session. I had trapped emotions in my body from when my mom was pregnant with me in the 3rd trimester when my parents split up. Like they were able to tell me what the emotion was and release it from I was mind blown. Okay. So understanding how we hold on to our stress, and part of what has worked for my healing in the last few years is, so back in 2006, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And for anyone who's listening doesn't know, I feel like it's basically a diagnosis the doctor gives you when they can't explain your pain. So
we're a little better in Canada for America diagnosing it compared to in Europe, or especially in France. Yeah. But yeah, I would say that's not completely false.
Yeah. So all of my health tests showed I was perfectly healthy on paper. They couldn't connect the dots between what I was feeling and what was actually happening. And when I started to actually do the work to heal emotionally, to heal for real, that was where my symptoms started to disappear. So I have not had a fibromyalgia flare up in years. Mind you, I went from being like immobile sometimes 6 out of 7 days a week to now it may happen once a year, once every couple of years, because I understand now how to express my emotions and not suppress them. And like you were saying before, being able to, I want to say, speak your truth, because you can have the greatest intentions when you say something and it may not be received that way, because as people, we may hear with our ears, but we listen with our emotions. So you could say something with the greatest intentions to someone and they are offended by what you've said. And 100%. It's not necessarily, it's not even necessarily how you've said it or what you said, but because they are in their feelings about something, because they have not healed from something, because they are working through something or unaware of something they need to work through, they can take offense. So
absolutely. Absolutely. No, like everything you're saying, it's so true. And I've seen it in my practice over the years. And then you see it with yourself as well, right? Because I've had patients where what I do, I'm a chiropractor. It's pretty physical. There's different ways of working on people. But the typical old school way, you're adjusting somebody, and sometimes you can get a slight pinch of pain. But I've had patients I've been treating for a long time. And luckily, I know them, and all of a sudden, something I've always done, it starts hurting, especially in specific areas of the body. And all of a sudden, they start crying, and it's hurting, and I'm like, oh my goodness! The first time it happened, I was like, "Are you okay?" Because this has never done this before. So as a young practitioner, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've hurt them." And now I've learned over the years is okay. This has, quote, for the most part, nothing to do with me. What's going on? And so we stop and we talk, and then you realize that they're stressed at work, their husband or their wife drove them nuts, their son or daughter, whatever it might be. There's something else going on, and me adjusting that particular point has forced them to release it when they weren't trying to, and they're carrying it in their body. So we don't. I'm glad, and looking at the book that you were mentioning, it's an MD that did it. We don't look at that enough in regular Western medicine. And there was, as you mentioned your book, there was one I was going to mention called Louise Hayes. I don't know if you know Louise Hayes and Heal Your Body. And her is different little books, and one of them with Heal Your Bodies is specifically where she goes through and explains where if you have pain in certain parts of your body, it could be linked to this, and this emotion. And I remember like, and funny enough, I discovered this book in holistic nutrition school. So that school, even though I went in for basic nutrition, because it's the holistic aspect of it, it really opened me up to a lot of other things that either I was already on the cusp of learning and it was like, oh, great, or other things I didn't even think about. And I discovered her book, and it's true. She ended up having cancer because she was abused when she was younger, and she ended up having uterine cancer because she carried all of that guilt and anger and shame in that area, and she's getting cancer from it. And that happens more than we think. So we really have to pay attention and let go of those things, because otherwise it's going to make us ill. It really is.
Yeah. I actually learned recently that it was a doctor that said it to me, that sugar and stress are the leading cause of cancer. And growing up, having so many family members die of cancer, and I'm like, oh well, it just runs in my family, it's just what it is, not knowing there are things you can do. Like you said, so many things within our body where we don't realize that it's affected by stress, and there's certain organs within our body that are connected directly to our emotion. So like, your liver, that's where you store like your anger, depression, resentment, irritability. I had sent this image to my partner because he always has back pain, and your back pain, your spine, that is stress over responsibilities, or feeling like you're carrying the weight of the world on your back. So there's parts of our body that are connected to our emotions.
Absolutely.
And when I started with my therapist that I'm with now, I was actually shocked when she like said to me, I need you to go see a chiropractor. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And I was like, what does this have to do with my mental health? So I started researching. And because of her, like, I'm going to the chiropractor twice a week. I'm going to massage therapist every other week. I'm doing all of these things that I didn't know before, would help release the trapped emotions and things within my body. So for anyone who is listening, definitely recommend.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's even like for us in school. I remember, so I have a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology. And I really liked it because to go to chiropractic school, you need a Bachelor of Science, right? But then the Bachelor of Science in what? There's so many other things like you could do, but I really like the psychology of helping people heal. I've always kind of been like that, right? But then when I went to chiropractic school, I was kind of surprised, and many people asked, even I was surprised, why we take psychology classes. But now, actually being in practice, I know why we do it. because there are times when most of the session is not even actually putting my hands on to treat someone. It's even just being an ear for somebody. And one adjustment's enough because they've already released most of it. And now we're just trying to get the rest of it out. And I'm okay with that because my goal is to help people be well and prevent illness from coming back. So if you are able, and a lot of times we have these questionnaires and whatever, but it's never enough. How many times have I spoken to someone, something simple as, oh, have you ever broken anything? Do you have any fractures or whatever? And the person, they'll say no. They'll tell you no. They answer the question no. Then as you're talking to them, I let people speak and they'll elaborate on their story. And sometimes it technically doesn't have anything to do on the surface with what we're doing, but it does because it kind of tells you where their mind state's at. Where are they? They're telling me one thing, but as they're talking, their body or their story is telling me something else of where they're at. Right? It could seem like they're, oh yeah, I'm great. I'm doing this and da 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 da. And then as they're talking, you realize you're not good at all. Like, learn to put on a show if we scratch only the surface. But if I let you go deeper, you're not good at all. Right? And you can be in the middle of a story and then they start telling you, they try to answer a question. Oh, that might have been when I broke my foot and da da da. I'm like, hold on a second. I thought you said you didn't break anything. Oh, well, that was da 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 da. And I'm like, no, I literally said to you, have you broken anything? You said no, categoric no. And then now you're telling me the story. This happened, back in 1985 when I broke my big toe. You know what I mean? It's funny how we suppress things and or we decide ahead of time that this part of our life and this part of your story has nothing to do with why you're here with me. But actually all of it has to, because just like if you come in for neck pain, your neck pain could be because of your shoulder pain or your low back pain. It's all connected. It's not, we're not made up of individual parts that are separate. It's all one unit. And our mind and our body and our physical health are linked together. So when we start to realize that more and more, we could actually help people a lot more, and we could heal ourselves a lot more than just sticking to this one side. Right. So I'm actually impressed that your therapist sent you to the chiropractor and all these things, because sometimes the therapist will only stick with what they're doing. Sometimes the chiropractors or MDs or whatever will only stick to their physical part. But once we realize we actually work together, is what health is supposed to be, just like community. It's a community of healing. That's why I get frustrated when people say, oh, well, I'm coming to you and I should do this. And it's like, and I say, well, actually, if you find the right person, we work together. If you do all of it at the same time, maybe staggered, but depending on where stage you're at. But if we actually do it at the same time, you'd actually get better a lot quicker than if you're only doing this and you're only focusing on this, because it's all really linked.
Yes, absolutely.
Just like your nutrition, how you eat and when you eat can actually have effect. And the energy, you talked about energy earlier, the vibration and energy, which I know for some people, they're like, oh, it's okay. You're not there yet. You haven't figured it out. But even the vibration and the certain foods that you eat might work for you, but not work for me, and vice versa. Like all of it matters. You know,
all of it.
Thy medicine.
I'm a huge believer in holistic healing. People will focus on, say, just their physical. But for me, I'm focused on the mind, body, and soul. Like I need to be working on all of it at all times, because you could be working on one part and the other part's completely being neglected. And you're like, well, why am I still feeling like this? Why am I still sick? Why am I still? Well, because you're not working on everything. You're hyper-focused on one area when we're made up of so many different parts.
Exactly. And I think the biggest trauma, and this is my personal opinion over time, having been back in Canada for 6 years-ish, and comparing with my friends in different places in the world and living different, I really feel one of the biggest things that I think is going to be our downfall as a society is if we don't get back to community living, meaning we share together, meet together, having relationships. I think we're such a hurt society, and as we get older, we're carrying our trauma. And personally, this is something I'm working on as well, trying to let it go, make sure you don't carry, whether it be in friendship, intimate relationships, your past hurts into the new one. But really just getting back to community. And we can all say because we're hurt, oh, I don't need anybody, I want to be on my own. But that's not true. It's not true.
Mm-hmm. We're
If
wired for connection.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
we really are. And like I said, my new obsession is really being able to live to 100. And
Mm-hmm.
everything that I've watched and studied, the pillars in that are nutrition, movement, belief or
Mm-hmm.
purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
However you want to call it, having a purpose in life, which often is linked to belief and faith, and
Mm-hmm.
community. No matter where you
Yes.
are in the world that has people that have lived long, those four things are
Yep.
always there. And we need each other. And that was one thing that I noticed, even though I came back here and to be around my family, and that was great, having family again around. And one of the really good things that came out of the pandemic is that we made an effort, because there was nothing else to do anyway, but we really made an effort. We met up with our core people once a month, because we realized that almost every month there was something to celebrate. Celebrate a birthday or Easter or Thanksgiving. And so out of 12 months of the year, there was always something to meet up for. And it was really a saving grace, I think, and being able to continue work, because I was allowed to work during the pandemic. Those two things were really a saving grace to me. And it's something that I find missing in North American culture sometimes, compared to the European lifestyle, is that going out to meet after work, even for a coffee. Or I used to go out with my group of girlfriends and we meet together at least once every 6 weeks to 2 months and have a brunch. And that community is life-saving. And that was probably one of the things that was the hardest about moving back to Canada, is losing that group. I gained my family, but lost that community. And talking to other friends that have come back from different places and moved back, it's that reconnecting to the North American lifestyle, because sometimes you feel like I personally felt like I was a foreigner moving back here, even though I grew up here and this was home. But I came in, I felt like I was a foreigner. There were obviously things easier, and I did have family, but I had to readapt. It took a good 6 months to a year, if not a year and a half, honestly, to really start to kind of readapt. But then now I'm slowly finding a community again and making a conscious effort for that, and making connections and having relationships. We need that. And I don't think until we do that, we're going to be lacking something that helps us. And i.e., when I was looking for a name for my company, because I had another one, and when I really tried to find something, that healing limitlessly was so important to me, because there's endless possibility of healing if we make the effort, and if we do the right things, we can constantly heal ourselves. But it's a never ending thing.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you 1000%. I feel like we could talk for hours about this topic, because I'm like, even as you some things, I was like, oh yeah, like I could totally add to that point. But I realized I lost track of time.
Yeah.
So we're going to tell the people where they could stay connected with you online, where they can learn more from you and about you.
Thank you. You can follow me on Instagram at Healing Limitlessly. You can also find me on LinkedIn under my name. My company is Limitless Healing Center. On Facebook, you can find me as Dr. Colleen P. And and Limitless Healing Center, RE at the end.com. So please reach out, come and talk. I'm here. I look forward to hearing.
I will have all of those details in the details section of the episode, so they can just click and connect with you directly.
Thank you. Thank you again for the fun. It was healing, truly. It really was.
That's what I love to hear. So for the final segment of the show, it's kind of like a rapid fire. You can answer one word or one sentence, but I also don't like to be kept in a box. I'm claustrophobic. So if you feel the need to expand, you're more than welcome to do so.
Okay.
All right. First question. When and where are you the happiest?
When and where am I the happiest? On a beach. On a beach in warm weather.
Gotcha. Okay. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received is from my dad. And I've heard this reiterated in different speeches from Denzel. So my dad always said, it's not so much what happens to you, it's how you react.
Mm-hmm.
That makes the difference. And then I heard that almost same thing in a speech from Denzel where he said, fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep fighting.
Okay. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
You can't do that.
Yep. Okay. What advice would you give your future self?
What advice would I give my future self? You've done great so far. Keep doing it. Keep going.
Love it. Okay. Last but not least, what do you wish women would do more of?
I wish for women that we would believe in ourselves and know that you're not alone. You know, just you don't have to do it alone, whether it be allowing your spouse to help you, allowing friends to help you, your children. Just listen to your heart, do what you know is right, and don't try and do it alone. Take the community with you.
I love it. Thank you so much, Colleen. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for giving us your wisdom. Thank you for your expertise. I truly, truly appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Thank you again for having me. It really, really, truly was an honor.
And to all of you healers out there, until next time, subscribe on all platforms. Don't forget to rate the show on Apple Podcast. And I want to thank each and every one of you that continues to listen each week to help the show rank globally in the top 1.5% of most popular shows out there. If you could think of, I'm going to challenge you today, 3 people that would receive value from today's show, please share it with them. Feel free to, screenshot this week's episode, and you can tag Colleen at Healing Limitlessly. You can tag myself at The Real McKinney Smith, and share your aha moments. Share, what your takeaways were from the show. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.